Welcome to the Goose One channel. It's not a secret that aesthetics are an insanely important part of Drain Gang, and really always have been in a sense. I mean, Bladee and Echo are frequent fashion models, Varg and Bladee at a painting in a museum, and the visual aesthetics of DGGTB are almost as important as the music itself is. And that's why today I want to analyze 3 of my favorite Bladee album covers as a case study of the wider aesthetics of Drain Gang, and how these album covers link to the themes and the atmosphere of the albums themselves. And to start off, we're jumping right back into 2018. Yes, we're talking about Ice Dancer.
If it's a deep, I gotta bite it. If I see weed, I gotta light it. If I get feelings, gotta hide it. If it's illegal, I don't mind it.
So, upon first glance, Ice Dancer's cover is kinda ugly, right? It's this weird collage of what looks like clip art with no real structure or recognizable stuff in it at all. The only thing that's actually in any sense comprehensible is the big Rip Squad text at the top and the Drain Gang logo in the corner. It's just a mess, right? But it also perfectly portrays what Ice Dancer is all about. Obvious from the title, Ice Dancer sounds cold, which might be a weird thing to say if you haven't heard the mixtape yourself, but it's really accurate if you have. The sound of the synths, the reverb on Blade's vocal mix, the way everything is arranged, it sounds like it's all frozen. And that is so perfectly reflected in the color palette of this cover. It has these light blues and teals and text with fuzzy edges like it's a glowing moon. And there's also the ice rink in the background and the blue tones erupting from the center of the images like an icy explosion. And that explosion also ties into something else that pretty much every Bladee cover, at least post Ice Dancer and Red Light, though, does perfectly. Their focal points are all perfectly in the middle. They all feel like we're looking into the eye of a tornado from above, seeing everything cascade into the center. The edges are less detailed, less filled, less dense, I guess, more empty. Yet the closer we get to the middle, the more stuff there just is. This is something you're going to want to pay more attention to for the rest of the video, because it definitely comes back. But it is also definitely present in this cover. Our focus is pulled to the center to this weird guy who we can't really parse. We can't really parse his body parts or his face. And now I kind of get to the up my own ass part, because I also personally think this specific not being able to parse-ness is really poignant for the mixtape itself. Ice Dancer is probably Blade's most popular release, but in a sense it's also his least interesting. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a shit ton of bangers on here, but conceptually there's nothing holding them all together like the records that came after it or before it, outside of the cold, icy feeling they all share. So the deeper you look into the record, the more you go into the center of it, the less you actually find, because there isn't really a super deep through line in a sense. Except for the amazing Rip Squad production, of course. And on the topic of records that came after Ice Dancer with a really identifiable through line, let's talk a little bit about Crest. In their interview for the Rolling Stone with Drain Gang, a month after the release of Crest, journalist Keegan Brady wrote this.
Their sound doesn't have the eager, trend-seeking energy of more polished young musicians, managing instead to find something organic in a world saturated in synthetics. To record Crest amongst nature, Eco 2K, White Armor and Bladee drove to the edge of Sweden and rented a cottage minutes away from the cliff-bound breach from Ingmar Bergman's fantasy epic The Seventh Seal.
I think this quote is beautifully poignant for the point that I want to make about Crest's album cover. Released 4 years after Ice Dancer, the maximalism that record's cover reveled in is entirely replaced with one of the most minimalistic covers in pretty much all of Drain Gang. Next to E, of course. That one's like, it's pretty much as minimalistic as you can get. In front of a white background, a childishly drawn house sits in a field, all in the middle of a frame reminiscent of Drain Gang's usual aesthetic. White, meaningless shapes that yet do follow the edgy Y2K aesthetic that GTB have always taken from in a way. But even while so absent of any of the usual hallmarks of the Drain Gang style, that beautiful use of the central focal point is still present. It's tranquil and beautiful, yet the scratchiness of the physical drawings accents the youthful, almost juvenile music that Echo 2K and Bladee bring together on this record. The first song that I think of whenever I see this cover is White Meadow. In one way, it perfectly reflects the serenity that the cover so effortlessly radiates. White Meadow makes you feel like you're in that grassland depicted in the cover art, watching through the window in that little red barn and staring out into the horizon. It's airy, uplifting, yet not too overwhelming. Yet the bubbling synths, the harsh auto-tune all form the juvenility, this is not a word, that Draingang so often revels in. White Meadow is that duality between ethereal beauty and earthly trash. It's the perfect middle point between Trash Star Blade and Drain CEO Blade. Really, all of Crest, outside of Chaos Follows to some degree, follows in these footsteps. Serene, ethereal landscapes are laid out before us, wherein the vocals that Blade and Echo 2K deliver provide more of an aesthetic purpose than any serious lyrical ones. Yet, in totality, I don't think Crest is Blade's most thematically interesting project. No, I'd have to give that title to Free Free Free. I think Free 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 is by far Blade's most spiritual record, the logical endpoint of the spiritual revolution he went through after being hit by lightning in 2019 and following the release of his single Apple. I can see arguments for it being The Fool, Exeter, and even the previously mentioned Crest, and maybe there's some psycho out there who'd say it's Spider, I don't know, but I just think Free 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 is the most overt about it. I mean, Free 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 is literally an angel number, so like, you know. I think this new attitude towards spirituality, the world, and all that is most poignantly exemplified on one track. Naturally, there are other tracks on the record that also display this theme, as it is simply just one of Blade's most thematically consistent records. Noblest Strife plays out like Blade's exegesis, a white paper of his beliefs at the time of this record's release. Don't Worry is a plea for bliss and life in the face of existentialism, and Keys to the City beautifully works through the new look on life that allowed Blade to break free of the depression that ruled so much of his Red Light era music. And all of this beautifully returns in the album's cover art. Firstly, that focal point thing is back and with a vengeance. The maximalism from the Ice Dancer and Red Light cover art is brought back but translated into this hand-painted style in a super cool way. There's just so much going on in an almost Sonder-like way. There are just little things and stories all over this cover, and it all leads to that angel in the center, radiating out and lighting up the entire picture in a sort of recursive manner. Personally, I like to picture this little guy with the brown hair just below the middle as Blade himself. As he stares at the angel, he becomes enlightened and gains the perspective on life that ever even allowed him to make this record. In a sense, this cover tells the story of the album without even having to listen to it, in the same vein as Jid's Forever story, just better, in my opinion. We see all the stories that are about to be told on this record portrayed within the cover. Yet, even that explanation feels like I'm doing the album cover an injustice. Free Free Free's cover is filled with life, with thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations, both of the past, as we see references to Blade and Draingang's past work, and of the future. And any singular interpretation is just that, an interpretation, a perspective. Just like the record itself, there are just too many facets to explain with one explanation. And yeah, that's why I think Blade's cover art is just so important. There are plenty of covers that I would have loved to talk about more, but I think these three really exemplify just exactly why Blade's visual design is so beautiful and well done and so important to the music itself. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments. If you liked the video, consider subscribing, check out my Patreon, all that bullshit, and I'll see you all in the next video? Shut the fucking door, yo, we keeping up the score. Headshot if you walk through the door.